Hi, everyone. Welcome again. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar about building powerful IoT solutions and Hologram's API platform. I'm Amy. I'm a senior brand manager here at Hologram, and I'll be moderating today's conversation. And for the next 30 minutes, we're going to just have a candid discussion about what it really takes to build a robust, scalable IoT application from both the perspective of the platform provider and a customer who's actually been doing it in production. So joining us today as our panelists are Endre Ulberg and Parker LeBlanc. Endre is a software engineer at Sunday Power, which is Norway's largest solar as a service provider. And Parker is a software engineer here at Hologram, building tools that people like Endre use to build things behind the Internet of Things. So today's discussion will be a Q&A, kind of like an AMA. We want your questions throughout, so please utilize the Q&A function in Zoom. If for some reason that's not working for you, try the chat. And we will just jump in with those questions as we go. We just really want this to be valuable, fun, like a good, interesting conversation between not only the panelists here, but your questions as well. So during this conversation, Endre is going to share what he's actually built, including architecture code. He has some cool props. All these things built on top of Hologram's API. And then we'll dive in with some more of those questions for Endre and Parker. So let's go ahead and start. So Endre, like I just mentioned, Sunday Power is Norway's largest solar as a service provider, and you have over 100 rooftop installations. So can you help everyone understand a little bit more about the role that cellular connectivity plays in Sunday Power's business model?
So, hi, my name is Andre, and how cellular connectivity plays a part in what we do is very much connected to what we're actually trying to sell to our customers, which is a two-part product in many ways. One part of it is about operations and kind of monitoring all of the solar installations that we are the operators for. And the other side of it is about the financing. So kind of the point where cellular connectivity is maybe the most important right away is about the monitoring, because in our case, we have solar installations on top of many industrial roof complexes, and we need to know what's going on out there, because say that there is an actual fire or something else goes bad, which is a real scenario that can happen. We would like to know that as early as possible, because there are real ramifications if we don't follow up on that quite quickly. And for that reason, we always have cellular connectivity, because we believe that is more stable and more reliable than using the building internet that we can get from our customers, due to them maybe setting up firewalls, changing IT providers, or for other reasons, doing stuff like that. And on the other side, we collect all of the production data through our IoT gateway from the inverters to be able to calculate the correct invoices for whichever market we're a part of at that time. And that production data is only collected either then through the building internet or through the cellular connectivity. And without that data, we are unable to basically get any money at all. This is our whole business model in many ways.
Great. Thank you for that background. So can you tell us a little bit more about how you are leveraging the Hologram API and what you actually built?
Yes, of course I can do that. I will share my screen. I think it's a little bit nicer to just show you guys what we actually have made. So just to give you guys a little bit of an understanding, when I say monitoring, I'm talking about this. So what you guys are looking at right now is a time series of the data that we have collected from one of our installations. So right now we're looking at June 2025. And we're looking at the production data from one of our real solar installations. And we're looking at the total production and the forecasted production. So as I mentioned, monitoring and operations is a very important part of what we're doing. So here we're also trying to see if there is any difference in what we expected to get produced and what we're actually getting produced. And that is one of the important parts of what we're using Hologram for. It's not necessarily here that we're using the API, but I thought it was nicer to give you a visual to kind of understand what we're actually collecting data to do. Here we can also see all of the different inverter status messages, which is what our power producing units are actually telling us is going on. Here we can see that everything is going very, very well. So this is kind of just a visual to explain what I just told you about. But to explain what we use Hologram's APIs for, I will show you this. So right here, this is a dashboard that shows all of our installations currently and how long it is since we last heard from that. So we have something called a heartbeat that every IoT device we have in the world sends out once a minute. And if it goes too far, that means over 300 seconds, it turns red in this dashboard and it sends us an alert. And a very important part of what we've learned through doing IoT is that these things go red quite often. So we have built automated systems with Hologram's APIs to be able to restart the modems whenever they have been offline for 60 seconds. And we're able to do that via sending SMSs to the modems, and they accept a password and a restart command. So every time these ones go red, we send out SMSs on a so-called exponential backoff, trying to get a message to the modem asking it to restart. And when they do restart, they usually are able to get back to a working state. So right now, if we follow this one here, CCDD, I have just unplugged that from right beside me. It is an IoT device that I have here with me. And if we go back and look at that at a later part, we will see that that device will keep increasing forever. And after a certain while, our automated systems will start sending SMSs to that device, asking it to the modem to restart itself.
Awesome. We did have a question come up in the chat about cellular versus other connectivity options like LoRa. Can you tell us more about your process at Sunday Power of determining all of the different types of connectivity and your options there?
Okay, yeah, of course. So on our end, we have mainly been considering two options. So we, like at Sunday Power, we try to go the path of least resistance first, which means that we tried to use the building internet first. And when that turned out to be problematic, we tried to kind of look into what are our alternatives. And here in Norway, where we're based, 4G has very good coverage. It is one of the few connectivity standards that actually has national coverage also into the mountainous regions. So that's why we started with that. And then we did see that in some buildings where we have technical rooms with many layers of concrete, that the connectivity was not penetrating. And we have then attempted to use LTE-M, which is a different connectivity standard that is meant to have better penetrations into the buildings. But it turned out for us that the throughput was too low. So we saw that our IoT devices started throttling. They were unable to send enough data, and they started backing up with the data. And we started to see that the production data was lagging. We were not getting it 5 seconds after it happened. It started to come a minute after, 2 minutes after, etc. And those are the primary things we've been looking at. I can also go more into detail into why building internets have not worked for us, but only if that's of interest.
We'll wait and see if anyone in chat wants to go deeper into that topic specifically. I know we're getting a few questions in chat. I'll pop one of those over to you in a moment. But first, since we're talking about the things that you are evaluating, can you tell us more about what developers should look for in terms of an API or other things that they should really research before picking their connectivity options and provider based on what you've learned in the past?
I think, and this is a belief on my end, that one of the most important things when picking a connectivity provider is thinking about how that is a part of your business, right? Because at least to us in Sunday Power, solar is our main business. Connectivity is a means to an end. We absolutely need it. We're very dependent on it, but it's not core business to us. So for that reason, we are very interested in having a reliable partner that is, it just works. We don't have to think about it. And as long as they then have a stable API, that doesn't bother us and just works like every other API, meaning a regular REST API, no special syntaxes, no special communication patterns, nothing that is kind of no rough edges, just smooth sailing. That makes more sense to us because it's not part of our core business. So we can't necessarily invest the time and effort into it in the same way we could other things.
Great. So I'm going to pull some questions from the chat. Thanks everyone for pulling those up. Stephen asked if restart gets the red device back to an active state. That sounds like a bug. Is it in your firmware or the communications infrastructure? So tell us more about that. Engineers need to know the root cause, Greg said. I love that.
Yes. Yeah. So to be quite honest, we have never digged into why. So initially when we picked our modem provider, we picked modems from a provider called Teltonika, and they have been quite stable. But we have seen that at some point, sending a nudge to them and asking them to restart was basically the only way of getting them back. And we've never been able to find anything in the logs that says that there has been any misconfiguration, either on our end or their end. And we have asked them, and at some point, it became kind of a resource efficiency game, because to us, it was simpler to just send the SMS and asking it to restart than it was to try to figure out what was the root cause. And sadly, since it's so stable to do it this way, and we have all had no issues with it, it's kind of hard to justify spending more time on it. Even though I do agree, like from a general standpoint, but I will also have to remind everyone that we are a startup, meaning we have in many ways limited resources.
Yeah.
Endre, I was curious, could you describe how your modems are sending data to a server? Like what type of interface are you using to communicate with your guys' systems?
The way that we get the data from our devices is over MQTT. So we use primarily AWS Greengrass, mostly just to get a very simple way of sending the data into AWS. It's not necessarily that we're super in love with AWS Greengrass, but it's a very simple way to get it into our cloud. And basically, we're sending all the messages after we have batched and compressed them over MQTT to our cloud. We unpack them and we store them in a data lake. And then we have a processing queue that picks up messages and stores them to the database based on availability. And this is pretty much how things work on our end.
We just got one in about typical data throughput. I think that's interesting. And Endre, if there's other things from the demo that process now that you could circle back on to show more of the under the hood, that would be nice.
But I can just quickly show you. So right now, you can see that this device, which is in particular one of our dev devices. So right now we're looking at only the part of our dashboard that is for dev devices. And this shows that it's soon to be 10 minutes since I unplugged the power from the device that's right next to me. I will actually stop sharing my screen so I can show you guys over here. I actually have one of our devices that is running out on our site. So this is the thing that's actually collecting all of the inverter data for us on all of our 100 installations. And now it's been down for about 10 minutes. I will plug it in again, and we will then see that it will recover and we'll start sending health messages again. And that is kind of part of how our how we do, I guess, just reliability checks in some sense. There was a question in regards to data throughput. Was there any particulars there that you wanted me to follow up on?
There weren't any in the question. Feel free to add more to that if you were the asker. But if there's anything that you have worth sharing, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah, no, I'll go ahead. So data throughput, we need quite high data throughput. We have kind of decided that we would rather invest in slightly more expensive equipment and slightly more expensive site installations if that allowed us to get higher throughput and in some sort of sense future proofing of the platform, allowing us to in the future have a more data intensive applications running on the edge. So even though we kind of have tested trying to decrease the throughput of our devices, we have kind of decided that 4G is a quite powerful technology, and we're able to, through a combination of batching and compression together with having okay antenna, be at the place where we right now we don't use a lot, but we have a lot of headroom, and that headroom allows us to kind of fearlessly just build whatever we want and see how it turns out.
Great. And I think a theme that we're getting to here with, being a startup and working with limited resources, future proofing, just trying to make as smart decisions as you can with what you have. You've also have grown really fast. You're managing over 100 installations now. What are some other things that you've learned or have done, whether that's through the API or Hologram or other things that you've leveraged to really help you support that rapid growth you've made in a scalable way?
Like, one of the reasons was we ended up here with Hologram is that we previously had another provider, which shall remain unnamed, which we had a lot of issues with. And we had quite a lot of painful moments before we got to maybe 40 devices. And due to those experiences, this is the reason why we have this automated restarting system that we do, built the way that we do, is based on the fact that at the start, we knew nothing about IoT. So we actually had a manual routine of restarting our devices once a day. We'd never done IoT before. We had no experience with it. And there was a concrete issue between our then connectivity provider and the modem provider that we had, which resulted in us having to kind of, restart things manually each day. And when we figured out that we can't find the root cause, there is no one that can give us answers, and there is no logs we can read anywhere that actually solves this, then we decided to just automate it. And now at scale, we have honestly very few connectivity issues. Like, for our stable fleet, it's almost never down more than 5 minutes, and that is an acceptable range for us. I understand that other people might have other ranges, but that is acceptable for where we are at right now.
Endre, have you used our fallback sims? Do you guys currently use those at all?
No, we actually do not.
Okay. Oh, that's all right. I was curious if you had any opportunity to work with those or not.
Not yet. I am always looking into other things that we can do differently, so maybe sometime in the future, but we haven't had the time to prioritize, to be quite honest.
That's okay. That's all right. Okay.
We have a question about security in SMS. Craig said that they do something similar. What do you think about security over SMS? You are typically having to pass the device admin password for a reboot. Do you have any concerns with that?
Yes, we do. And I can say that right now we're in the middle of changing to a new hardware device that has a built-in modem and works in a quite different way from the current setup. And there we are going to be a little bit more, we're probably going to have unique passwords per device and be a little bit more good at rotating our secrets quite frequently, and maybe also finding other ways to make the SMS controller plane that we have more secure, because we don't trust sending plain text over the GSMA networks. And we are not like super happy about where we're at, but up until now, we have not had enough issues with it that it's been something we've prioritized, but it's absolutely very high on the priority list of things we know we need to fix before we can scale a lot.
Great. And Parker, someone in the chat is also asking for more details on the fallback sim. Do you want to explain fallback and outage protection a bit more and how that works?
Absolutely. Yeah. So outage protection sims are essentially sims that have multiple profiles on them. And we have a special applet on there that detects when the cellular connectivity drops in a certain area. And our fallback system will actually trigger, causing the other profile to be enabled, basically allowing us to provide multiple access to different networks. So we provide this with a couple of our different carrier partners, but it's one of our premium features, and it's really exciting. I saw that Tyler mentioned that has 2 SIM card slots, and I think so both of those could be for like if you had a separate provider, and ultimately our fallback system would make it so you can kind of have 2 SIM card slots with only 1 SIM card. So you could put two hologram SIMs in your two SIM card slots, but ultimately, if they're using the same provider, you'll probably get the exact same functionality, just with more ICC-IDs. So that might be a little bit more confusing. Now, if you had two different hologram SIMs, then maybe that might be useful. But hopefully that answers your question, Tyler.
Great. We got a new two-part question in. I'm going to start with the first one for Endre. You were asked, wonder what led to the decision of implementing disconnection detection and reset command done on the backend level rather than directly on the installation level, meaning likely your units could detect network disruption and reset itself. No?
Yes, that is completely correct. But there is a reason why we did it the way that we did. And it's mainly due to the fact that we were in the middle of changing between hardware devices, between different providers, meaning that we would have to maintain two sets of configurations if we did it on the unit side instead of from the back end. So it was more a trade-off about time than necessarily being the ideal solution that we desired. But that is completely correct. And it's also what we're considering doing for the new devices. But we're also considering doing some hybrid approach for the new devices.
And the second part of that was, I think, more for Parker, us on the hologram side, asking about how we deal with permanent roaming potential issues, being in Canada, but also looking into expanding into Brazil, and it's a concern with MVNOs. Do you have thoughts on this from the engineering perspective, Parker?
Yeah, I think we're constantly battling this with our contracts and always making sure that our partners are really supporting these different permanent roaming deals. So, maybe if one region starts to have an issue, we might have a different profile that solves that issue, or we usually always have a solution for most of our markets if something like that comes up. So, I don't have the most up-to-date details, but that's usually how something like that goes.
And for Canada specifically, we do have a TELUS only profile. Is that correct? And that's one of our direct ones that has higher performance. If you can share more
Correct,
details
yeah.
on that.
Yeah. So for the markets that are strictly avoiding permanent roaming, I think you're right with Canada. We do have those native profiles that are able to solve that problem. And if you do have one of those fallback SIMs, you can still get the multi-profile behavior on a single SIM card that allows you to still have those global opportunities or global roaming profiles to make things easier in the event that that one Canadian profile loses connectivity, which is pretty cool.
Great. So we're getting pretty close to time. As we wrap up, I would love if, Endre, you wanted to just impart any wisdom that you want people to know about building actual software for IoT. What have you learned? What's the most important thing you want people to take away from this conversation and your personal experiences?
Our experience thus far is that believing that you can piggyback on someone else's network is generally has turned out to be false. Using building internet or some other kind of existing Ethernet that is there has been a treacherous path for us, at least. The second part of that is that it is both harder and more expensive than expected, meaning that you should probably invest more time upfront in understanding what it is that you're about to do, and hopefully then selecting both the right hardware, the right partners, and everything sooner rather than later. And that means, I think that goes especially on the commercial side, actually finding deals that doesn't punish you too severely if it turns out that you use more data than you anticipated in the earlier phases of building your IoT product.
And Parker, anything that you want to share with folks from the connectivity provider side about what you have learned building and working on the API and just other relevant information based on the questions people have asked that you want people to know?
Yeah, we are constantly trying to update our systems and design for scale. And, being able to hear the stories like Endre has provided, it's just super encouraging and exciting to know that people like using our platform and that some of our design choices have really been helpful for their systems. So, if anyone has questions, we're we've got a lovely support team that's always there to step in and answer questions you might have. And we're always trying to improve it, and always trying to get better for handling all these huge requests that we're constantly processing every day. So it's fun.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for attending, for answering and asking the questions. We hope this was valuable. So thanks again. And thank you to Endre and Parker for this great time. Thank you, everyone.